so much for the hard work you're doing. Thank you so much to Dr. Jill Malone. Thank you so much. I know you work non-stop. Thank you, thank you. I wonder, with all the travels you are doing, if you know in which time zone you are in, because we really know you go crisscross. And thank you again for being part of this MEHA launch. It means a lot to us. Thank you. Dear Robert.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I hesitate to even follow that powerful presentation. Mine is perhaps less philosophical and more pragmatic. I was asked by the organizers to help bring to you information and perspective about what we're experiencing in the United States within the Make America Healthy Again movement. So the title, The MAHA and MEHA Movements, A View from Across the Atlantic. For members of the press or others unfamiliar with my qualifications, I'm a U.S. licensed physician and a well-qualified medical scientist trained at the University of California, the Salk Institute, and both Northwestern and Harvard medical schools. I've experience and expertise in vaccine development, immunology, biochemistry, molecular biology, clinical research, and regulatory affairs. I was the original inventor of manufacturing, delivering, and using synthetic mRNA as a drug, including for vaccine purposes, when I was 28. Okay, so for those that are going to assert that I'm a mass murderer, forgive me, I was only 28. I currently serve as a medical advisor to MAHA Action and as co-chairperson of the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, appointed by Secretary Kennedy. My primary purpose here is to brief the meeting about Make America Healthy Again initiatives, including the ongoing reforms at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, otherwise known as the CDC, and in particular the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, otherwise known as ACIP. I'm not here to advise or even to pretend to fully understand European politics or the Make Europe Healthy Again movement. My hope is that the progress being made by the grassroots bipartisan MAHA movement in the United States can provide examples which may be useful to the MEHA movement in Europe. Now, my caveat that I have to say here now, because I am officially a government employee. My opinions expressed here are my own and do not necessarily represent those of the U.S. government, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and or the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. So we have that clear. Starting off, focusing on medical ethics and the principle of subsidiarity, something that Americans rarely hear about. I hope and trust that you share my strong support for both individual informed consent as defined by the Nuremberg Accords and the Helsinki Agreement, as well as the principle of subsidiarity enshrined in Article 5, Section 3 of the Treaty of the European Union, or TEU. In my opinion, in medical treatment matters, the patient is the lowest effective level of governance, for if we're not allowed to govern our own bodies and what medical treatments we accept, then there can be no personal freedom and there can be no proportionality. The cornerstone of this ethical structure is the principle of patient-informed consent, which were widely violated during COVID. In a free society, citizens must have the freedom to decide what medical procedures they wish to accept for themselves and their children. They must be provided complete, transparent access to the full spectrum of information concerning risks and benefits of a procedure, including vaccination. And they must be allowed to choose whether to accept a medical procedure, whether or not it is experimental, without being subjected to coercion, compulsion, or enticement. This is the bedrock of 20th century bioethics. I'm afraid that in modern 21st century, utilitarian bioethics are taking a different tact. But I'm an old school 20th century guy. The interests of the collective society should not outweigh the rights of the individual to bodily autonomy. The principle of subsidiarity was introduced in the Maastricht Treaty of 1992 and reinforced in the 2009 Lisbon Treaty to balance EU integration with national sovereignty due to ongoing bureaucratic competence creep, which is eerily similar to the mission creep seen with the CDC and many other U.S. federal agencies. More about this later. As a reminder, this brilliant foundational document of the Treaty on European in Article 5, Section 3 states that under the principle of subsidiarity, in areas that do not fall within its exclusive competence, the Union shall act only and insofar as the objectives of the proposed action cannot be sufficiently achieved by the member states, either at central level or at regional and local level, but can rather, by reason of the scale or effects of the proposed action, be better achieved at Union level. Obviously, we're talking about this building that we're in, and particularly the European Council. The institutions of the Union shall apply the principle of subsidiarity, shall apply the principle of subsidiarity as laid down in the protocol on the application of the principles of subsidiarity and proportionality. National parliaments ensure effective implementation of the principle of subsidiarity through the procedures set out in that protocol. In my opinion, the current European Council appears to be routinely violating this central principle. The bizarrely counterproductive decisions centrally made and then forced on EU member states and citizens in the name of, quote, public health during COVID illustrate the consequences of permitting routine violations to Article 5, Section 3. The toll in economic and social damage, sickness, death, and loss of faith and legitimacy for public health and the healing professions is profound and cannot be easily repaired. Consequent to this heavy-handed mismanagement, we now face a similar crisis in confidence in public health and medical caregiver confidence legitimacy in the United States. We got the same problem. Only we don't have the principle of subsidiarity written into our Constitution, so you're one up on us on that. The big difference in the political climate and affairs between the U.S. and the European Union is the outcome of the recent leadership elections, as you all well know. You have Ursula von der Leyen. I've heard other ways of expressing her name. And we have Donald Trump and his close ally, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. President Trump and Secretary Kennedy share a deep, long-standing commitment to the overall health of the citizens that they serve, and in particular to America's children. With all of the rhetoric and weaponized hate currently deployed against both of these transformational leaders, what is often overlooked is they are unified in their commitment to a better future for our children. It is long past time for this political, social, and governmental commitment. As the President has often pointed out, data demonstrate that if nothing is done, America's children will live shorter, sicker lives than those of their parents. So let's talk about what was done about that in the new administration of President Trump and Secretary Kennedy. The MEHA Commission. To understand and fix this situation, the President has launched an all-of-government response, in some ways similar to what he did for COVID with Operation Warp Speed. That's a fact. And has put Secretary Kennedy in charge of this new initiative. It's called the MEHA Commission, all-of-government response to making America healthy again. The Presidential Make America Healthy Again Commission was established by executive order in February of 2025, shortly after Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s confirmation as HHS Secretary. Chaired by Kennedy, the 14-member commission includes leaders from HHS, USDA, EPA, NIH, FDA, and other agencies. Its mission focuses on addressing the chronic childhood disease epidemic, ergo obesity, diabetes, autism, mental health disorders, by identifying root causes like poor diet, environmental toxins, over-medicalization, and inactivity. There has never, in the history of the United States, been such a candid and comprehensive response to a public health crisis. So what's come of it? Remember, it's only been less than a year. So far, the Commission has released 2 key reports. The first was essentially a threat assessment. In May 2025, the Make Our Children Healthy Again assessment was published, a 72-page analysis representing all of government consensus. You know what that means. There were compromises. Identifying a wide range of factors driving the decline in children's health, such as ultra-processed foods, chemical exposures, chronic stress, and unnecessary medications. It outlined 10 initial research initiatives and called for federal restructuring the federal government to advance the interests of public health and the health of our children. The second document that was released this last September was an action plan. What are we going to do about it? Make Our Children Healthy Again strategy was published. This is a comprehensive plan of action with over 120 initiatives emphasizing executive actions to promote nutrition, reduce toxins, enhance transparency, and realign incentives. Very much relating to what Asim is talking about. Incentives drive policy. To guide implementation of these actions, it's proposed that there will be a new agency created within the US HHS called the Administration for a Healthy America. This strategy, so I'm going to now talk about the details of what the US government is actually doing. Not to lord it over you, but rather to give you some information and ideas and examples. This can be done. It is being done in the United States. It can be done in Europe with a European emphasis and a European flavor. My big message here is don't give up hope, folks. You've had a setback, but in the long run, I'm convinced we're going to win. So let's plan for winning, okay? So, I got so much stuff I got to jam through. It's even worse than Asim. I appreciate the applause, but it's not necessary. In the area of nutrition and food policy, okay, so there are multiple what they're calling pillars to this policy and this action plan. Nutrition and food policy. Revamp dietary guidelines for Americans to prioritize whole foods, limit ultra-processed items, and ban synthetic dyes. Those are already in progress. Remove restrictions on whole milk in schools. You would think, what's the deal with whole milk? There's a whole policy. Oh no, we can't have whole milk. Recognize that Secretary Kennedy and the President are taking on the most powerful entrenched interests in the American economy, and they're not just doing them one at a time. They're taking them all on at the same time. It's incredible to watch. You're talking about courage. The courage to take this on blows my mind. Remove restrictions on whole milk in schools. Encourage states to waive what we call SNAP, Special Assistance in Nutrition Benefits, for sugary drinks and candy. You would think that this would be self-evident. The government shouldn't be paying for Coca-Cola to be given to little kids at school that's all full of sugar. But that means you have to take on Coca-Cola, which is one of the most powerful organizations in the world, and you have to take on the sugar lobby, okay? By the way, Coca-Cola was the one behind the attacks that Joe Rogan got on Spotify for allowing me to speak, okay? If that doesn't twist your mind, I don't know what will. Nutrition and food policy. Define and label ultra-processed foods. Thank you. Just so we know, this is disclosure. Improve school and military meal standards. More fresh produce. Promote low-carb, whole food diets in guidelines and education. Listen to the cardiologists. For the environmental toxins and chemicals pillar, phase out petroleum-based synthetic food dyes. Oh my God. Review generally recognized as safe food additives that maybe aren't so safe after all. Assess and reduce pesticide exposure, glyphosate and atrazine. That's a big deal for us in the United States. You all have already done that in Europe. Pat yourself on the back. Well, okay, depends on which part of Europe, but trust me, it can be worse. Via EPA reviews, unfortunately, this is the one area that the lobbies have been most successful in pushing back against, because we have this problem of the upcoming midterm elections and whether or not the farm states are going to vote for Trump. Okay, so that is the reality of political sausage making, which you all understand very well. Remove fluoride from water supplies. Study electromagnetic radiation and heavy metals in soil and water. Here's a mind bender. Link soil health to human health through farmer support programs and research. Have you heard any language like that coming out of the European Union? No, what you've heard is the opposite. It's destroy the farmers and appropriate their lands, as near as I can tell from my side of the pond. But in the United States, this administration is committed to regenerative agriculture, what are essentially old school farming practices, instead of just blasting the soil with petroleum-based petrochemicals. Regarding physical activity and lifestyle, reestablish presidential fitness in schools, fund after-school activity programs, partner with the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition to combat child inactivity, integrate nutrition and lifestyle education into medical schools. Whoa, that's a big one. That's unheard of. And public awareness campaigns. This is why you see Bobby Kennedy and the Secretary of Defense doing these very public challenge reels where they're showing themselves engaging in physical activities. This goes back, I'm old enough to remember President Kennedy. And President Kennedy had a major initiative, presidential initiative in health for children. That was a core part of the curriculum. Bobby's trying to bring that back, together in particular with Pete Hegseth. Okay, now this starts to cut a little close to the bone. Medications and over-medicalization is a particular focus. Review over-prescription of SSRIs, antipsychotics, stimulants, and weight loss drugs for children. Okay, we have I don't know about you here in Europe, but in the United States, we've got a mental health crisis, and it's partly driven by over-pharmaceutical administration to our children. Ensure most favored nation status drug pricing. This is a big one. Ban direct-to-consumer pharma ads. You guys are all scratching your heads. What the heck are they talking about? In the United States, one of only 2 nations where pharma gets on the TV and sells you drugs. So much so that many people that watch old school television, I don't know how many there are left, but they're constantly bombarded by ads telling them to buy pharmaceuticals, telling them to buy vaccines. And oh, by the way, some of those ads, particularly for vaccines, have been sponsored by the U.S. government. Wants to stop that. Phase out animal testing for drugs and chemicals and lift ban on category 2 peptides. Full transparency on vaccine data. Reconstitute the ACIP, that's the thing that I'm involved in, to eliminate conflicts of interest. Boy, that's a big deal. The conflicts of interest are so deep and pervasive that the secretary basically had to excuse the entire committee and reconstitute it from scratch. And I can tell you, they subjected me to 3 months of screening and training about conflict of interest before they appointed me. Okay, they're taking this seriously. For the research and transparency pillar, fund $50 million for autism, chronic disease research, close data gaps on root causes. Who would have thought that the President of the United States would be so committed to understanding the root causes of autism, and yet he is all in? The reason behind that is speculation, but apparently it has a 20-year history. He met with Bobby Kennedy over 20 years ago to discuss the causes of autism for some reason. He happened to have a child just about that point in time, but maybe that's coincidence. $50 million for autism. Eliminate industry influence by ethics frameworks and transparency rules. Hold public hearings, roundtables, evaluate federal programs for effectiveness, and the final pillar, institutional reforms. Create administration for a healthy America to coordinate chronic disease efforts. We're going to have a whole part of the government that is just focused on chronic disease, identifying the causes, identifying the cures. Fire and replace conflicted CDC and NIH officials. I can tell you, first person, this is going on a daily basis right now and is an extremely high priority within HHS. It's amazing to watch. This was in their plan. Cut $500 million from RNA projects. You heard Asim with his slide. Check. Mission accomplished. Align 30-plus states with MEHA policies. Prosecute misuse of public funds. That's already ongoing. Bobby tours all over the nation. People don't realize it. He's constantly shuttling to state governments to get them involved in this entire initiative. This would be akin to, if you could even bend your mind around it, Ursula going out to the member states of the European Union and talking to them about how the council could work better with the member states to promote health. Is that even a possibility? Okay, let's see if that's something that can be replicated in the European Union. And pigs could fly. Are these just words, or has there been progress? Under Secretary Kennedy's leadership, HHS has already advanced special nutrition program waivers, dietary reforms, and ACIP reconstitution. To date, the strategy emphasizes private sector partnerships, ergo with farmers, for example, and public engagement. However, truth be told, there's already been setbacks. And I mentioned, ag lobbies have influenced pesticide language, drawing criticism from environmental groups and the general public, particularly in alternative media. Broader reforms face budget hurdles and congressional obstructionism, and we're barreling towards the midterms. All this could come to a screeching halt in a year from now. Broader long-term goals include reducing childhood obesity from 20% to under 10% by 2030, cutting chronic disease rates, and reorienting the entire medical system from a focus on treating illness to a focus on promoting health, thereby saving trillions in healthcare costs through disease prevention. It was a great lead-in. Thank you. You made the point. Okay, now I was asked to talk specifically about this thing that I'm kind of right in the middle of, which is changes at CDC and ACIP. Let's consider this a case study. Case study of organizational change in an entrenched bureaucracy in government. Can it be done? Is it even possible? Okay? To illustrate how these plans are being translated into action and policy, I'll now focus on the ongoing reforms at the US CDC. There are multiple factors driving these changes. In the United States, we have more protections in place to ensure patient-level data privacy than exists throughout most of Europe. You hear what I just said? We can't gather data as well as you can, and we can't analyze it, particularly in the Nordic countries. We don't have socialized medicine in the same way you do, and we have barriers to ensure patient confidentiality in data. One of the consequences is we can't do, frankly, as good a job as you can do in epidemiology, which may be part of the reason why in some nation states we're getting better data on the COVID harms than from Europe and the UK than we're getting from the United States. So that's trying to give the CDC a little bit of latitude for the challenges that they've encountered in data capture and analysis. So it's in the States, it's much harder to analyze and guide public health policy decisions because we don't have the quality of data that you have. That's an intrinsic advantage that you folks have here in the European Union. Now, whether or not it's open and transparent and you're able to access that, but the potential exists. I mentioned above about mission creep and some of the other problems that your principle of subsidiarity and proportionality was designed to address. In the States, we've got it in spades. One of these is conflicting mandates of promotion versus protection. Almost all of our federal agencies have a dual mandate, and it's illustrated really clear in the CDC for vaccines. The CDC has a mandate to promote vaccination, and they also have a mandate to monitor safety and effectiveness of vaccines. Which budget is bigger? Promoting vaccination is way bigger, okay? So you can figure out what's happened there in the dynamic. The culture of the CDC has become really wrapped around the idea that any information which will cause the listener, the recipient, to become vaccine hesitant must be suppressed. Whether it's true or false, it cannot be shared. Okay? Then this is spread across the world. In some ways, I think we may be the source. Like many U.S. federal agencies, the CDC suffers from conflicting mandates. In the case of vaccines, it's tasked with gathering information on safety and effectiveness, but also with promoting vaccines and vaccination. As I mentioned, there's been more of an emphasis on promoting vaccination. This has pervaded the entire medical services sector under the leadership of CDC and their marketing. It's pervaded the entire medical services sector to the point that any attempt to objectively and rigorously evaluate vaccine safety and efficacy is regarded as a systemic cultural threat to public health. If you ask the question, you are a threat to public health. That's the logic. The interests and culture of public health and those of the vaccine industry have become one and the same. They're inseparable, and they're not allowed to be questioned. This is a fundamental. The Overton window, if you're familiar with that concept, of acceptable public discourse concerning vaccines is closed, with layers of gatekeepers in corporate media, academia, medical guilds, industry marketing, scientific journals, and political parties all focused on preventing any objective scientific evaluation of vaccine risks and benefits. This is justified based on the thesis that any information concerning vaccine risks will lead to vaccine hesitancy will then cost lives. The CDC has become the primary governmental enforcer of this logic, to the point of sponsoring social media gang stalking campaigns targeting dissenters. I'm sure Asim has been on the receiving end of those gang stalking campaigns on social media. During the Biden administration, the federal security apparatus and the intelligence community, this is all documented. Federal security apparatus and the intelligence community cooperated with the CDC to monitor and censor all who challenged or violated this cult-like belief system. Same thing happened in the UK. The accepted official position became that any who questioned any aspect of promoted vaccine safety and effectiveness narratives were killing people. Those who transgress were literally and figuratively accused of being mass murderers by press as well as CDC-sponsored and facilitated activists. Those seeking to take my medical license, they failed, during the COVID period, literally accused me to my medical board of being a mass murderer for publicly discussing the risks of mRNA products. Here is one example illustrating the perverse logic that has enabled this cult of vaccination. According to evidence-based medicine, the, quote, best available evidence should guide clinical decisions. You agree? Retrospective studies have emerged showing vaccinated kids are much sicker, but these studies are always dismissed by the, quote, vaccine experts in the mainstream media for not being, quote, well controlled. Here's the logic trap that powers that. Since placebo trials on vaccines are never done for, quote, ethical reasons, by the rules of evidence-based medicine, the retrospective studies we have are the best available evidence. And their conclusions about vaccine harm cannot be dismissed unless better, ergo placebo-controlled trials, are conducted to corroborate or refute them. And by the way, that's part of Bobby's initiative with the CDC, is to empower true placebo-controlled trials, not only of individual vaccines, but of vaccine-vaccine interactions, for which there are no studies. When you're giving multiple vaccines to your child, what are the data showing that those vaccines are not going to interact? If it's a normal drug-drug interaction, the FDA is all over it. If it's a vaccine-vaccine interaction, crickets. Studies not done. Studies are basically considered to be impossible, unethical. Those data should not be obtained. The alternative vaccine safety advocacy community's perspective, in other words, those that are advocating in the alternative community for vaccine safety, is that the actual reason these placebo trials are never done is because they would immediately show how dangerous the vaccines are. Hence why the vaccine industry has to constantly make excuses for not doing them, while simultaneously claiming if they were done, they would show that vaccines are harmless. They, talk about cognitive dissonance. In this space, it's okay to have clear cognitive dissonance and illogic if in the service of promoting vaccines. In short, anytime someone critiques a retrospective study comparing vaccinated to unvaccinated as invalid, it's critical to remember that these studies are the gold standard because better ones will never and can never be done due to promoted, contrived, and tenuous ethical considerations that are not allowed to be questioned. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, the profitability of the vaccine industry has soared to new heights. But all drugs, including vaccines, have risks and benefits. All drugs should be judiciously prescribed for those that are more likely to benefit from treatment than to be harmed. And free citizens, in theory, what we have here in the European Union and the United States, free citizens have the right to understand those risks and benefits, do they not? And to determine if the potential benefits outweigh the risks for themselves as individuals. This is particularly true with prophylactic vaccines. Think about it. This is a fundamental principle in vaccinology. Prophylactic vaccines are administered to otherwise healthy persons with the intention of preventing an unpredictable event that may or may not occur, infection and subsequent disease, at some point in the future. Out of all drugs, vaccines must be the most safe that they can be because they're given to healthy people that you cannot predict if they are going to become unhealthy at some point, so they darn well better be safe. This is a fundamental principle of vaccinology, pounded into me over 30 years of experience and training in clinical research, and yet we completely disregard this because it's inconvenient. To probe how far this has gone with American culture, I recently posted 2 simple questions on X, both of which were read by over 200,000 people and provoked thousands of comments. About a third of those comments were attacks that would meet European standards for hate speech. Here's the 2 simple questions. Can we at least agree that it would be good to have safer and more effective vaccines that are rigorously tested according to established modern regulatory standards? Apparently, that is a really controversial statement. Who would have thought? The other one I posted, I look forward to the day when it's no longer acceptable to censor and ridicule parents of vaccine-injured children. You wouldn't believe the hate that provoked, okay? Those parents are liars. They are absolutely misrepresenting what happened. They have no idea what really happened to their children. They're damaging vaccine uptake. They're damaging the credibility of the vaccine industry. hundreds and hundreds of people making these kinds of comments for these very simple questions. This hate speech appears to originate from a combination of left-leaning political partisans, fake accounts or bots, and avid members of the cult that aggressively advocates that all vaccines are undeniably safe and effective. As has happened in the EU, CDC has suffered from a bureaucratic mission creep, exacerbated by this cult-like culture of unquestioning vaccine advocacy, combined with a perverse utilitarian bioethical framework based on the thesis, the ends justify the means. This is what's requiring broad-based reorganization. Now, I only have about 10 minutes left, and so I'm going to jump over a few things. But the one thing I want to share with you in particular, I can go through the blow-by-blow of what's going on at the ACIP and the insider politics. That'll take another hour. But I want to share with you some fundamental changes in U.S. policy as it relates to international health. Because international health is the socket between what's going on at HHS and your embryonic movement. Major restructuring of the U.S. government health enterprise is in progress, as you know. Together with USAID, the CDC has traditionally led many aspects of U.S. international public health initiatives. Under President Trump, this is now changing. USAID has been decommissioned, and the U.S. is withdrawing from the World Health Organization. What does that mean? The State Department will now be playing a much larger role in guiding U.S. international health policy, for better or for worse. Under Secretary Rubio, Thomas Donato, acting as Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security, that's who this is getting delegated to, by the way, because of the whole idea of global health as a security issue. Thomas Donato, you'll get to know his name, will be assuming an active role in guiding international health security. This comes in the form of a new, quote, America First global health strategy, built on 3 pillars: making Americans safer, stronger, and more prosperous. The State Department argues U.S. global health programs have become inefficient and wasteful, leading to a culture of dependency among recipient countries. The State Department has developed a plan to migrate from global health aid to fostering self-reliance of countries the U.S. has supported in prior years. The U.S. will focus on working directly with nations, that's a code for not through the WHO, requiring them to co-invest in global health initiatives in order to tackle diseases such as tuberculosis, polio, and HIV/AIDS as part of a new strategy from President Trump's administration. As part of co-investments, recipient governments will have to meet performance benchmarks in order for more U.S. foreign health assistance to be released. Here's the statement from the State Department. Our global health foreign assistance program is not just aid, it's a strategic mechanism to further our bilateral interests around the world. Moving forward, we will utilize our health foreign assistance to advance U.S. priorities and move countries toward resilient and durable local health systems. We will do this by entering multi-year bilateral agreements with recipient countries that lay out clear goals and action plans. These bilateral agreements will ensure that both 100% of frontline commodity purchases and frontline healthcare workers will continue to be funded during the agreement period. We will partner with each country, so bilateral, to ensure there are data systems in place that can both monitor potential outbreaks and broader health outcomes, the State Department said. We'll also work to rapidly transition technical assistance to support governments in taking over key functions rather than individual clinical sites. What we're talking about is the initial build to an alternative to the WHO. The position of the State Department is that when there's an outbreak, we'll be prepared to work with local governments to respond properly. When necessary, we will be prepared to surge resources to ensure the outbreak is contained, travelers appropriately screened, and to the maximum extent possible, the outbreak does not reach American shores or harm Americans living abroad. They're jettisoning a lot of the core policies that are floating down from UN and the UN objectives to WHO and then out through the World Health Community. They're simplifying that and streamlining it and focusing it on actual health, not advancing social agendas. So what's happened at CDC? I'm going to skip some of the background and context. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy and officials of the Department of Health and Human Services have changed recommendations and policies for multiple vaccines, including shots against COVID-19 and measles. This is promises made, promises kept. In May of this year, under orders from Kennedy, the CDC stopped recommending COVID-19 vaccines for healthy children and pregnant women. The press howled. The Food and Drug Administration later revoked emergency authorizations for the vaccine. The FDA also approved 4 shots for narrower populations. After accepting the recommendations of the ACIP, the CDC now calls for individuals to speak with a healthcare provider about risks and benefits before receiving a COVID vaccine. What a revolutionary thought. A change approved on October 6th, just the other day. The specifics involve a shift from COVID-19 vaccines being recommended to requiring, quote, shared decision-making. The ACIP has also called for improved disclosure of risks and benefits to these products in the CDC-produced vaccine information sheets. Kennedy wrote on X that the move amounted to restoring informed consent. That's at the core of all of this. Empowering patients, focusing on the physician-patient interaction and the rights of patients to informed consent rather than the top-down imposition of a utilitarian concept of public health. Greatest good for the greatest number. Kennedy wrote on X, and then here, unlike in Europe, in the United States, where the official advertising for the COVID injections has increased here in Europe, the CDC and U.S. government are no longer advertising in favor of COVID vaccination. With the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, President Trump recently encouraged people to take separate vaccines, but they don't exist. Manufacturers won't produce them. They only produce them as a combined product. So CDC Director O'Neill is backing Trump and calling on manufacturers to produce monovalent vaccines so people can choose which ones they want. The United States in 2025 had recorded the most cases of measles since 1992, although these levels were still below typical measles case numbers in the European region, by the way. Secretary Kennedy said the vaccine limits the spread of measles and people should get it. He also raised concerns about side effects, which can include seizures. In response, officials in Texas now, the state that has recorded the bulk of the cases, announced on August 18 the measles outbreak was over. Regarding varicella vaccine and MMRV, there's been acceptance of the advice from our group, the ACIP, to split off the varicella combination into a separate standalone vaccine, and in discussion is splitting up the whole MMR complex into separate shots for children that parents can choose to accept or not accept. For hepatitis B vaccine, there's another one that's really controversial. ACIP was prepared to vote on advising the CDC to delay the first dose. Right now in the United States, when your baby is born, whether or not you, the parent, have hepatitis B, the first thing that baby gets is a vitamin K shot and a hepatitis B shot. Now, are they at significant risk for hepatitis B? No. Okay? But that's the policy, and basically it's all wrapped around the public health logic that if we don't get them now, they're not going to come back later and get it. And so we better get them at birth. That's what's really going on. That's underlying all of this logic. Suffice to say, President Trump has made it clear he doesn't find that acceptable. And his advice is that the product, if it's administered at all, should be deferred to onset of puberty. We'll see what the ACIP recommends to the director of CDC probably at the next meeting. President Trump wants the entire vaccine schedule revisited, childhood vaccine schedule. He wants to know whether or not there's actual science behind that entire schedule and whether or not it needs to be reconsidered or even revoked. Regarding annual influenza vaccines, the ACIP recommends that the government keep in its place the recommendations, but what we did do, and this also provoked howls of outrage, is we got rid of the mercury in flu vaccines. We got rid of the thimerosal. And the big objection to that was, well, if we get rid of the United States, then you're no longer going to be able to use thimerosal in Africa for multi-dose vials, okay? But that's kind of medical imperialism, isn't it? But that's the objection that was raised. But Secretary Kennedy has now, and his team, have overturned that. We no longer have mercury in the flu vaccines that are going into our children. In the case of HPV vaccines, the ACIP is reevaluating the logic around the timing and recommendations for human papillomavirus vaccine. For chikungunya vaccine, the vaccine that was on the market, there's two, but one of them had shown clear data of adverse events, cardiac problems, and even death. That's been pulled. Concerning the overall schedule, we have a special working group that is focused just on the child immunization schedule and asking the question whether or not that's necessary to be maintained. As you can see from this brief summary, under guidance from Secretary Kennedy as well as Secretary Rubio, President Trump and his team are making unprecedented strides towards reinvigorating scientific and medical integrity in public health. These actions are triggering an amazing amount of controversy. Who would think that it would be controversial to try to improve the health of the nation's citizens and particularly their children? It's amazing to watch, but at the core of both of their commitments is fundamental medical ethics, the rights of the individual patient, and a bipartisan commitment to improving the health of all Americans and particularly American children. In the end, it's hard to refute or oppose a commitment to making America healthy again, and I suspect equally hard to oppose the new grassroots movements to make Europe healthy again. Thanks for listening. 47. Overshot by 2 minutes.
So before we hear from our great audience and have statements from people from all across the world, I ask my dear executive board colleague, Stephanie Lind, and the amazing singer, Jeff Sewell, on stage here on the podium to us. And the reason why we come together now is that a wonderful man would have had his birthday yesterday. We're talking about the wonderful father and husband, Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated. And we want to have my dear executive board colleague, Stephanie Lind, from the United States of America, say some wonderful words. And after that, we ask you to stand up for a minute of silence. And afterwards, we will hear a wonderful piece of music by Jeff Sewell. And I thank you for being part of this very important part of this afternoon. Thank you.
In this chamber, we are often divided by party or perspective, but in the quiet that follows a passing, we are reminded of the greater dignity of our common human experience and the shared hope that our work, our convictions, and our courage might build a better world. Whatever our individual beliefs, moments of loss remind us of the importance of values that preserve civility. And beyond this, Charlie embodied an undefended love that reached out his hand towards the other. As we share this moment of silence, each in our own way, may we experience for one moment the world that Charlie worked for, a world where the circle is drawn so wide that no one stands outside it. A moment of silence is, by definition, 100% participation. So today, we honor a life devoted to civic engagement as we acknowledge the power of one sincere voice in the public square. May our remembrance deepen our capacity for honor, for those we have lost, for one another, and for the sacred stewardship of our children's inheritance, the world without end. I invite you now to stand and join me in a moment of silence.
Courage, connection, love, and a deep faith and reverence in God. At his memorial, everyone sung this song, and it's How Great Thou Art. Studies show that the way to unite communities, families, countries, and the world is group singing. We raise the vibration through music and love. Simone and I are parents of a vaccine-injured child. At 2 years old, she was diagnosed with autism. And music for us has been the key to her recovery, among so many other things. And so we stand in reverence of all those children who weren't able to be healed, and we pray that change occurs in Europe. MEHA, make Europe healthy again. Also, we're from New Zealand, so this song embodies the Maori language and also a mantra from our family to yours with that courage momentum. Maestro, please.
O Lord my God, when I to an awesome wonder consider all the works thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displays. My soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. From our family to yours, will you be one who dares to try, when challenged to the task, to rise to heights you've never seen, or is that too much to ask? This is your day, a world to win, great purpose to achieve. Accept the challenge of your goals, and in yourself and God believe. How great thou art.
Thank you so much. So we have wonderful people from all across the world here with us today, and I will be the moderator of the second part of this afternoon, and I will invite speaker by speaker to bring us their statements. We will start off with statements from wonderful friends, and I call them family meanwhile, who are part of Make Europe Healthy Again as executive board members or steering committee members. So you will be the first to speak, please. And I want to introduce my dear friend, Dr. Andrea Nazarenko from the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Today I'd like to share a vision of a new paradigm of health, one that is championed by MEHA. For too long, our prevailing health system has relied on a narrow and reductionistic understanding of health, one that treats biology as the sole determinant of well-being. Our model rewards treatment over prevention and profit over people. The result is a structure driven largely by commercial interests rather than the public good. The fundamental flaw in our current system is not only the presence of corruption and conflict of interests, it's at its core the very conception of health itself. We have mistaken the absence of disease for the presence of health, and we have built institutions that manage illness rather than cultivating well-being. Decades of research make one thing undeniable: 80 to 90% of population health outcomes are determined by social, environmental, and economic conditions, not medical care. A person's health is shaped more by their postal code than their genetic code. Health does not grow in laboratories or clinics, and building more hospitals is not a sign of a healthy nation. In fact, it's a measure of how unwell a nation is. Health grows in the environments that surround us. It is shaped by the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the strength, safety, and purpose in our communities. Dr. Malhotra and Dr. Robert Malone have discussed already how these social and structural determinants of health, as we call them, are the true drivers of human well-being. Across the European Union, the consequences of neglecting these determinants are profound. Within, not across, within some member states, life expectancy differs by more than 15 years between regions, differences that are driven largely from preventable environmental factors. Fortunately, these conditions are modifiable by policy, by design, and by the leadership of the people represented in this room. We have reached a point where we simply cannot treat our way out of a sick society. The time has come to build environments that make health the natural outcome, not the exception. This is why MEHA exists, to help nations strengthen these foundations, to make prevention, resilience, and community well-being the cornerstone of health policy, rather than maintaining a narrow focus on mandates and pharmacological interventions. No amount of medical intervention or behavioral restriction can compensate for an unhealthy environment. We see this clearly in the epidemic of loneliness prevalent today. During the pandemic, when connection was curtailed, loneliness more than doubled across the EU. It's no surprise that global anxiety and depression rose about 25%. Social disconnection alone increases mortality by 26 to 32%. These are not failures of individual will, but signs of a stressed social environment. True public health is not governmental overreach into individualized medicine. It's about creating the conditions where good health can flourish. So how do we support health more holistically? We simply widen the lens. Human connection to each other and to the earth is medicine. Health must be central to all EU policy, not isolated to a specific health ministry or siloed into specific departments. A family's health can depend as much on zoning laws or public transportation routes as access to a doctor. The policies you pass in this room have direct implications for how people live, and how people live determines their health. While we currently live with the repercussions of short-sighted policies, the truth is that health, it unfolds across generations. This offers us hope. Every decision made in this parliament, every vote, every regulation, and every act of courage will echo through our children's bodies and their children's communities. Medical mandates, digital privacy infringements, environmental degradation, social disconnection, and economic instability leave scars that will endure. But policies grounded in stewardship, justice, and compassion will plant seeds of resilience to nourish generations to come. This is the mission of MEHA, to reconnect what has been divided, to restore integrity across societal systems, and to make Europe healthy again, not by chance, but by design. We invite interested politicians, policymakers, and people from all nations to join us by prioritizing MEHA-aligned initiatives in your national and EU agendas, by enacting legislation that protects transparency, independence, and the social foundations for health, and by ensuring that every policy across every sector builds rather than erodes human well-being. To facilitate the ease of what this means, we have collated from our key, our Dr. Malone and Dr. Malhotra, as well as other key stakeholders, a list of priority legislation that is MEHA aligned that will be passed out now or soon. These could be implemented by any policymakers within the EU Parliament or your member nations. If your nation needs support, either from a grassroots or policy level from MEHA experts, please reach out to info@gomeha.com. And thank you for joining us in this mission to make Europe healthy again.
Our next speaker, our dear steering committee member, Professor Dr. Matthias Desmet.
As I was sitting here, listening to the truly brilliant speeches of Dr. Malone and Dr. Malhotra, I found myself reflecting on the name of the project here, like make Europe healthy again, and I just wondered. The title suggests that we are less healthy now than we once were. And I just started to wonder, like, would this be true? Like, we are living longer now than before. At least that's how it seems. And on the other hand, there are more people who are chronically ill than ever before. So that might be true as well. And I just noticed that I have been asking myself so many questions about what health is. I'm a professor in psychology. I did randomized controlled trials. I try to answer that question, what a human being needs to be healthy. And the more questions I asked, the less answers I could think of. And the more uncertain, really, I mean when I say the more uncertain I became. Like, look at Trump. He took the vaccine and statins, and he's still alive. So nothing's sure in this life. And I also, from a scientific point of view, I think that it's clear that health and the human body, the human mind in general, is a complex dynamical system, and intrinsically these systems are unpredictable. We can know something about health, but we can never arrive at a kind of absolute truth about health. So, and when I'm here today, and when I support this project, it's definitely not because I think I know what people have to do to be healthy. I think I know something about it, but definitely not enough to have this illusion that I could impose my knowledge to other people. So when I'm here today, it's definitely not because I think I'm certain about what we have to do about health. It's because there are other people who think they are certain enough to impose their vision to the world. And I'm talking about very specific people. I'm talking, for instance, about the globalist institutions such as the WHO and their One Health policy. Talking about these people who think that they are so sure that they know better what it means to be healthy and what we have to do to be healthy, that they try to impose their health through a digital system which censors every alternative opinion about health. Such a system is a totalitarian system. And I challenge everyone to show me that that is not true. A totalitarian system is a system that strives for total control over the minds and the bodies of the people. So when I'm here today, it's because I oppose totalitarianism. Thanks.
Our next speaker, former MEP and Vice President of MEHA, Rob Roos.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to speak to you here today. As a concerned citizen, as an advocate of a healthy lifestyle, and as a proud participant in this movement with great people inside. I am not a medical doctor, but what I am is someone who has lived for nearly 20 years by a simple yet powerful principle: eat clean and move regularly, not as a hype, but as a way of life. True health begins with the basics: pure, unprocessed natural food, and with sufficient physical exercise, something people can take into their own hands. But healthy food must remain accessible. What we see today, however, is that under the guise of climate policy, our natural sources of nutrition are being discredited. Meat, fish, dairy, foods that have sustained humanity since the dawn of time, are suddenly declared undesirable. Meanwhile, our farmers, the guardians of that natural wealth, are being systematically destroyed, forced to quit or to switch to so-called sustainable alternatives that have nothing to do with nature at all. In their place, we are offered ultra-processed food, lab-grown meat, bugs and insects as protein substitute. This is not progress, this is dehumanization. Do not be deceived, this policy is not about health or climate, but about control, money and power. While enormous profits are made on the one hand from processed food that make people sick, obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, even more is earned on the other hand from drugs that suppress the system, these systems, but do not heal. Because, as I often say, Big Pharma does not want you dead, but it certainly does not want you healthy either. The profit lies precisely in between. It's a system that costs society billions. A healthy nation depends on the well-being of its people. And all the while, the guiding principle should be prevention is better than cure. Imagine what we could achieve if those resources were devoted to genuine preventive health. And isn't health the most important element of our lives? As Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wisely said, we can't have 1,000 wishes, but if you are ill, you have only one wish left. During the COVID crisis, we witnessed where misguided interest can lead. Under the slogan, "Trust the science," every critical voice was discredited or silenced. Take the Great Barrington Declaration of October 2020, authored by Martin Kulldorff of Harvard, Sunetra Gupta of Oxford, and J. Bhattacharya from Stanford, co-signed by Nobel Prize winners and thousands of medical experts. Yet they were publicly defamed and cancelled, simply because they had the guts to think, to question, and to propose alternative ways to face the crisis. Science, unfortunately, is not always independent. It can be bought. Remember the time the doctors who defended smoking. Remember DDT, long declared safe, until the truth could no longer be denied. Governments offered certainty where there was none, and used safety as a political weapon. That was not science, it was a web of vested interests. Just two examples of many. That is why our duty to remain truly independent, to inform and protect the people where others don't, and to stand for genuine health. Not the science of profit, but the science of truth. For a healthy and vital society reconnected to nature, and for a healthy future for all of us. So I call on all the medical doctors and experts in Europe, join this movement. Let's make Europe healthy again, because together we can. Thank you very much for your attention.
Before I come to our next speaker, I want to say a big And heartfelt thank you to our partners. Today we're live streaming also on Children's Health Defense TV. Thank you to our partnering organization. Mary Holland is also in MEHA's steering committee. And so I come to our next speaker and partner in this very important movement and initiative. Seya Chi is here. I know Seya for almost 10 years now, and I was following you and that long a time ago. And thank you so much for the work you are doing. You all the States of America today. You're also co-founder of Global Well Forum. Thank you so much that you come here to represent not only wellness MEHA action and sending heartfelt greetings from the Alliance as well. Thank you, Seya, for being here.
Thank you so much. My name is Seya Ji, and it's a great honor to be here to represent a grassroots movement that has really taken the United States aflame in terms of it affecting every household. Every man, woman, child is involved. And so we are so excited for what you're doing here. This is really an incredible moment. So I come from the home state of Florida, and what we've achieved there, many thought was impossible just this year. So what we've seen is the end of non-consented to mass fluoridation. That was a grassroots effort that started out in my Collier County, where my partner in Greenman Info lives, and it was just a grassroots effort, and it just snowballed to the point now where, of course, we have the MEHA Commission through the executive branch of our government that's honoring this grassroots movement at the highest levels. We also have our governor and surgeon general who just declared the end of mandates, essentially, medical mandates in Florida, a great role model for the rest of the states. We also are now seeing legislation. We have over 30 bills just on ending geoengineering in the United States, and now we have Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's introducing a federal bill that would essentially make that also no longer something we're going to be afflicted by, because the poisoning of our skies and our air and our food, it's just so egregious. We know that this needs to stop. But in the United States, there is such a huge uprising of a true constitutional republic, where the values we speak so highly of here in this room are vivified by our actions daily. It's very encouraging. We also obviously went through a very dark time with the declared pandemic, and that brought many of us into this advocacy. We know that without bodily sovereignty, there are no other civil liberties that apply. They're theoretical, okay? They're not real. And so this is a movement that is just such a humanizing, really unifying movement that we are just so happy to be able to bridge with MEHA. Essentially, I'm here to represent, just a huge outpouring of support and love for what you're doing, all the way from Bobby, who's a great friend and colleague, of course, and our bold and courageous leader who's taking MEHA, by storm in this country. And now we're able to bridge that and really welcome you as allies. So it's a really beautiful moment, and I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you for supporting us also in the steering committee, Seya, with your wisdom. Thank you so much. And our next speaker is Tom Lausen from Germany.
Yes, I would like to speak in my mother language, so if you want to listen to that, please switch to the earphones. Ja, erstmal vielen Dank.
I'd like to start by thanking you for inviting me. All of us together have witnessed a historic event. We went through a so-called pandemic, and during this time we all really had the same experiences. You'd wake up in the morning and wish for it all to end soon. This takes a toll on people's health. This was why I started to question our policies. When were we ever presented with a positive picture that would allow us to look forward to the next day, to some kind of positive event? And our politicians seem to continue with business as usual. They don't seem to be able to do that. What the political sphere is trying is not to make us healthy or to aid us. And I'm talking from my own experience. I must say that it does look as though we're heading for a seismic shift. A shift that also consists of having a digital ID. During COVID, people were being told that we had to take the vaccine to protect others. Mr. Starmer today is a lot more cheeky in his approach. What he's saying is that at the end of his term, everyone will have to have a digital ID or they won't have a job. This is detrimental to our health. And that's why it's important for us to take matters into our hands. This is why I welcome MEHA, and I will support it as much as I can. And I hope for a better future. Then one more thing I have been a firm believer in for 30 years. I don't believe we're heading for a better future if we continue to eat animals, our fellow living beings. This is something a lot of you might not yet have considered. I believe it's problematic because animals get a lot more drugs than we do. And then also because animals live in fear. Fear is something that harms us. A lack of fear is what's good for our health. These animals are being slaughtered, so they live in fear. And this is reflected in their cellular structure. I'm sure Dr. Malone has something to say on that. So we are consuming this fear. And if we stop eating animals, I'm confident that we can live very healthy here in Europe.
Also very good is that there is a lot of farmers out there who really try to do their best and to have organic farms, and so it is not up to us to tell anybody what to eat, but I think the product of the food we eat is important, like the quality of the food we eat is important, and also our movement lives from we agree to disagree, but as a vegetarian or somebody who does not like meat, it is a fair statement to also bring this up to this important meeting, Make Europe Healthy Again. And again, want to say a big shout out to farmers who work with permaculture, who do organic farming, who treat their animals until, yes, they slaughter them as beings. And I even know farmers who do prayers before they really produce the meat from the animals they have. So we also absolutely support farmers who take other ways than this big industrial food chains that are out there. So this is a statement that I just wanted to bring up here as well. Our next speaker is also in our steering committee, dear Elaine Mullally from Ireland.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you. Thank you to all the other speakers. It's been a fantastic afternoon so far, so hopefully I'll do Ireland proud today. Just a point that I thought was very important to bring up, which I don't know if it's got an awful lot of media attention internationally, is I saw an article in a local newspaper in Ireland, and it was written by a professor of the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland. His name is Steve Carrigan, and he stated that according to the World Health Organization, there's been 7.1 million deaths from COVID since 2020. And he also states that annually 55 million people die a year of sepsis, which means that during the same period, since 2020 up to 2025, there's been almost 55 million people who have died globally from sepsis. At the risk here of giving large pharma an opportunity to come out with a new vaccine, I just think it's an issue that needs to be highlighted internationally, because it's one of those, it seems to be hidden a lot, and I have done a bit of research into it myself. The figures are correct. From an Irish perspective, Ireland has one of the highest levels of obesity in Europe. We have 60% of adults, 20% of children living with overweight or obesity. Obesity, as we know, can lead to heart disease, cancers, respiratory disease, pain, and lots of other conditions, including mental health and disability. Obesity is not a disease or illness. It's a combination of lifestyle and poor decision making, which could be reversed through diet, exercise, good mental health practices, including meditation. A huge contributing factor, I believe, to diabetes or to obesity is the accessibility to whole products, good foods. Normally, it's much cheaper to buy convenient fast foods than it is for the public to be able to access good quality fresh produce. Also, sedentary lifestyles mean that more people are sitting for longer periods in front of screens, which is not helping. I believe as a movement, if we could reach out to more parents to educate them on the benefits of preparing and cooking fresh produce as much as possible, because we know that children learn from actions rather than what they see is what becomes part of their lifestyles. Another statistic from Ireland is last year there was 37,000 prescriptions for antidepressants which were issued to people under the age of 18. This was in the first 9 months of 2024. And to me, we have to ask serious questions about why are so many of our young people depressed, and also, why it's become so convenient just to dish out pills to them instead of working out how we can help them, how we can heal them. And I probably would put social media down as possibly a part to play in all of this. Our next generations are spending, including, some of their parents are spending lots of long periods of time on phones, on PlayStations, etc. So it's probably not helping with their mental health as well as their physical health. I'm not going to keep you much longer because Maria had told me I have a 2 minute slot. So I just want to finish on a quote, and it's from Gandhi. He said, "To forget how to dig the earth and to tend to the soil is to forget ourselves." And I believe that we need to get back to the earth to create that connection between our soul and the soil. And that's why I'm delighted to be involved in this fantastic project, and I hope that we can all collectively make Europe healthy again. Thank you.
Our next speaker, who is also on the steering committee of MEHA, is our dear friend, Dan Estin Gregory from the UK.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and everyone watching at home, Europe and indeed the world is at a crossroads right now, not just for health, but for the very spirit of humankind. Over recent years, across each of our respective nations, we've witnessed what happens when systems lose touch with the human being, when health becomes a market and not a mission, when fear replaces wisdom, and when power centralizes and trust corrodes. We are living through what some historians call the fourth turning, an era where old systems decay, institutions lose legitimacy, and a new chapter struggles to be born. In such times, we face a choice: fear and control, or courage and renewal. Europe's story has always been one of renewal, and Make Europe Healthy Again is not a slogan. It's a call to remember who we are. It's a seed of the future, a seed to restore and protect the essentials of life: clean food, pure water, fresh air, fertile soil, and the freedom to choose how we live, heal, and commune. The future of health cannot be dictated by institutions. It must be authored by the people. Let this chapter be remembered not for the collapse of the old, but for the emergence of the new, as we not only reclaim what has been lost, but build the future today. Together, we can build systems that honor open science, sovereignty, and the sacredness of life itself. Here's to Make Europe Healthy Again. Thank you.
Our next speaker, also on the steering committee of MEHA, our dear colleague from France, Dr. Louis Fouché.
Thank you for the invitation. I have no conflicts of interest with big pharma, big insurance, big food, or big data industries. I maintain no explicit political affiliation, and I'm committed to remaining unaffiliated. I must confess I feel uneasy about public demonstration concerning anyone's death and do not wish to be involuntarily drawn into a polarizing movement. This said, you may have noticed the bitter irony of the barbed wire surrounding the so-called democracy in action propaganda just out there. There is a paradox in celebrating the birth of a health and freedom initiative here, in the very heart of darkness. It all began with exposing the incoherence of the COVID response. The awakening has not stopped. This wake-up call has opened eyes. The COVID crisis revealed a profound systemic failure. The healthcare system has become a highly profitable and corrupt industry of disease. Science and academia are undermined and politicized, as noted by British medical journal editor Cameron Abbasi. Multinational corporations have gained overwhelming control over media, medicine, and public institutions, exploiting them for profit and dominance over individuals' lives. Health information has been transformed into propaganda and dogmatic coercion of consent. Concerns about hazardous mRNA vaccine mandates are on everyone's mind. Consequently, the EU and governments have become corporate-driven entities, exploiting national wealth under the pretext of an ongoing eternal war against infectious diseases. The total cost of COVID vaccine contract has exceeded 70 billion euros, according to the European Court of Auditors. According to the French Observatory for Economic Conditions, the COVID crisis cost France 458 billion euros, creating an oppressive long-term debt with no investment in the future. The French healthcare system is deteriorating and collapsing. Hospitals and providers lack resources across the whole country. Planned self-destruction is underway, while politicians display passive fascination and impotence. Digitalization threatens to dehumanize care and marginalize healthcare providers, driving unlimited profits for big data companies. Meanwhile, the mental and physical health of the French people is deteriorating every year, and the real priorities remain unaddressed. It is time for change. It is time to reform our institutions by removing corrupt decision makers. It is time to restore trust and autonomy to healthcare providers and citizens. It is time to reinstate rigorous science and academic excellence to address our complex challenges. It is time to liberate medicine, agriculture, air, food, water, seeds, and soil from corporate exploitation. It is time to build resilience by integrating modern medicine with traditional wisdoms for a holistic approach to health. It is time to stop environmental degradation and prioritize preventive and repurposed medications. It is time to withdraw from harmful WHO mandates and pandemic treaties. It is time to restore France's and every nation's sovereignty in health. It is time to return individual control to parents and family over the children's health decision, including child vaccination. On this path, the EU is not an asset, it is an obstacle. No one said it would be easy, but where there's a will, there is a way. With patience, method, and determination, we will reclaim our sovereignty and responsibility. The challenges are many, but your body, your choice. Your health, your choice. It is high times to make healthcare human again. The COVID crisis exposed systemic failures, and it will end when we make Europe healthy again, through cooperation based on friendship and respect among free sovereign nations. Cela s'arrêtera quand nous refuserons de subir et que nous aurons rendu la santé aux Français.
Once we've stopped suffering and once we've returned health to the French people. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. So our next speaker is Dr. Beate Pfeil from Germany, also in steering committee.
So thank you, Maria. I'm an independent researcher with a special focus on human rights, constitutional law and international law. And I would like to say, if we want to make Europe healthy again, one important concern is to break the excessive power of the WHO. A WHO that is no longer capable of fulfilling its stated mission of protecting public health. On the contrary, it is contributing massively to the destruction of the lives, physical integrity, and freedom of the world's population. Yesterday, my colleague Philipp Kruse and myself were invited, no, it was on Monday, to a hearing at the German Bundestag, the German parliament, as experts. One of the mainstream experts being present there said that the WHO's power, main source of power, lies in its expertise. We here know that the WHO has long since become an organization characterized by blatant lack of transparency, prone to arbitrariness and corruption. An organization that is open to external control by the profit interests of the pharmaceutical affiliated donor lobby. An organization that is not subject to any independent control or legal review, and which is now attempting to establish a pharmaceutical industrial complex through the new international health regulations in which the safety interests of the population clearly play no role. An organization that under the guise of combating misinformation and disinformation is attempting to permanently exclude reputable science as represented here from the public discourse. As long as governments and the experts they appoint claim that the WHO has objective and independent expertise and act accordingly, people's lives, health, and freedom will be under acute threat. We here stand for something different. We here stand for something else, for the vision of a world of human dignity, freedom, and above all, individual self-determination in health matters, including informed consent. With this in mind, I would like to thank the two outstanding experts and the politicians on the podium, and especially also Maria, for their devotion to this important matter. Together we can make Europe healthy again. Thanks.
Our next speaker, also on the MEHA steering committee, Dr. Tia Kanzara from the UK.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for hosting us, Gerald, Maria, for bringing us all together. Incredible speeches, so inspiring by Asim and Robert, Jill as well, supporting Sayoji, and all of you here today who work so tirelessly on keeping all of us healthy and safe. I'm Dr. Tia Kansara. I have a PhD from UCL on building physics and thermodynamics, supported by MIT and the Abu Dhabi government. I created the first and largest benchmark for energy efficiency in the built environment in the Gulf region, and subsequently I've worked as director of Replenish Earth, having traveled to 90 countries over 25 years, working with governments and the private sector to transition our global economy towards nature and net positive, not net zero, going beyond that. You cannot separate what happens inside of your body and what happens outside of your body. Your every behavior, your every choice is and becomes a decision that we collectively have consequences over. And we're seeing that we're not the only ones that we're waiting for. All of us have to come together to do the work that we can do. And isn't it kind of funny that the largest issue that we have in our lives today is about health? It's about health of the planet, and it's about health of the people. And we're living an existential crisis that is almost like a mirror to the externalities that we do not wish to measure. I remember in my first week of economics degree at SOAS, it was economics is the study of the scarcity of resources, and I couldn't stop laughing at the professor, and I thought, isn't that a little bit strange that you're teaching us about the scarcity of a resource so that you could price it? What about the externalities to the decisions that we make and the products that we consume and or the policies that we create? I remember this incredible article that was in the Guardian newspaper about plastics, and it was pointing towards individuals for buying produce that had plastics inside them. Not the manufacturer, not the designer, not the policy documents, not the infrastructure within the city to collect any of that rubbish. It was the consumer. You are the consumer. It is your problem. And I believe that we're now at a stage that our decisions have consequences beyond ourselves, and we're able to measure these. So I'm here representing the Global Wellness Forum today. I'm so happy that we are bringing health sovereignty and freedom together in this room, and long may we make Europe healthy again.
Thank you so much. So now we have to move on, and our dear friend Rob Rose was actually the person who led another person to say the following statement: we have to move on at the speed of science, which is like faster than the speed of light. And the next speakers that I will ask to speak are kindly asked to just tell the names, their profession and their country of origin, and bring their short 2-minute maximum, maybe even 90-second statements, because we have so many awesome people in the room that we would love to hear today. And so our next speaker is a friend of ours who came all the way from Australia. Next speaker is Adrian McRae.
Thank you, Maria. Adrian McRae from Australia. I just want to say good afternoon and obviously to the members of the European Parliament, both past and present, distinguished guests and great friends from all over the world. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Honourable Gerald Hauser, MEP, and Dr. Huber Mogg and Dr. Nazarenko for the kind invitation to address this amazing audience in this hallowed building, and to share the platform with some of the world's leading authorities and activists in the global health sovereignty movement. Make Europe Healthy Again, or MEHA, is much more than just a movement to bring optimum health back to the people of Europe itself. This initiative will have ramifications all across European cultures globally, including my own country of Australia. Organisations like MEHA, however, are not without risks, both to elected members of Parliament here in the European Parliament and, of course, to activist movements like ours here at MEHA. As a testament to this risk, I can share my own personal experience as an elected member of local government in Australia. 12 months ago, my local government in Port Hedland, Western Australia, moved and passed a motion demanding the Prime Minister, the state leaders and health ministers across the country validate what is now verified science, and we demanded a suspension of the mRNA injections, that Australians' mRNA COVID injections are dangerously contaminated with foreign DNA contaminations and foreign DNA fragments. Now, this Australian local government action has now been successfully followed and replicated in towns and cities all across Australia. We've also had over 200 million views on our on social media of our council meeting. This put some serious pressure on the Australian TGA, which is Australia's drug regulation body, akin to Europe's EMA or the FDA in the USA. For those of you who don't know, the Australian drug regulator, the TGA, receives around about 95% of its funding from Big Pharma. It's like regulatory capture on steroids. To make matters worse, the unelected bureaucrats who approve or deny applications for new drugs or medical interventions have no legislative requirement to declare any conflicts of interest. So when over 90% of the TGA's budget is supported by industry it regulates, and when the conflicts of interest of those marketing drug approval decisions is hidden, is it any wonder in the West that we've lost our faith in our health institutions? Only in Australia could a regulator funded by the industry it regulates still call itself impartial with a straight face. I tell you this story to point out the inherent risks that we all face in speaking truth to power. Last month, my entire local government in Australia was sacked and dissolved, and we had our elections cancelled. Why? Because as a tier of Australian government, we dared to ask uncomfortable questions that embarrassed the Australian federal government and their cosy relationship with Big Pharma. In the plaza outside this building today, we all saw the enormous sign that states, European Parliament, Democracy in Action. Now, if we had such a sign in Australia, it would probably say something like, Australian Parliament, Democracy on Life Support. So I'm proud to stand here in Europe, the home of democracy, alongside so many amazing politicians, scientists, doctors and activists who I know will lead Europe and all European nations back from the brink of tyranny. None of us want a totalitarian system whereby none of us, not even our children, have autonomy over our own bodies. The onus is on all of us here today to turn this ship around. But I just finally want to say that while this fight is focused on health in particular, we must also focus on something that JD Vance discussed in Europe only earlier this year, and that is freedom of speech. The global war on freedom of speech will soon leave only the USA and American doctors in particular as the only health professionals globally with any ability to speak up and push back on the enormous pharmaceutical and WHO snowball that is rolling down the hill at us. We certainly saw this through COVID when any doctor in my country in particular, and I also saw it happening in Europe, that spoke up against the mandates would be lose their medical licence. Anyway, we all need to remember to focus not only on one aspect of health but also free speech, because together they go hand in hand. And let's make Europe and all European cultures around the world healthy again.
Our next speaker is Dr. Margareta Gries-Brisson from Germany.
Oops. Yeah. I would like to, my name is Margareta Gries-Brisson. I'm a consultant neurologist from Germany, and I would like to draw the attention on an aspect of medicine which is frequently ignored. Between prevention, meaning health, and pathology, meaning illness, there is a large gray zone of intermittent feeling unwell, intermittent symptoms while your medical examination and your laboratory tests are still within normal limits. Pharmacology has no solution for these situations. I would warn strongly to ignore this situation, to slide into chronic pathology and full-blown illness. Here comes, and I would suggest that we get off our horse of arrogance that the only way toward health is given by evidence-based pharmacology. This situation, in my opinion, is covered by complementary medicine, which involves lifestyle changes, which involves environmental toxins, and so on. I would like to suggest, and I would like to request, that MEHA guarantees a safe slot for complementary medicine in the medicine of the future, because complementary medicine addresses and focuses physiology. And physiology, we need a properly functioning physiology. We need to remain healthy as long as we are well and to become healthy when we are ill. Thank you. Sorry, that's a little bit nervous, I have no idea.
Thank you so much. So go with the flow is the message in the room. I would like to have as next speaker, because this perfectly fits, to my dear colleague from Austria, Dr. Walter Surberg, who has over 40 years in practicing medicine in his own private practice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for my invitation. I try to speak English very slowly. We Austrians are a bit slower, except Maria. She speaks very fast. I have to say thank you to you all, especially to the stars that came from heaven, as our musician said. Thank you for your sentences. I may thank you to Robert Malone for your sentence, let plan for win. And you gave us a view to the alternative WHO. You said wonderful things, and you were so very important for us all over the world. Through your book, we knew now what is happening with the mRNA in reality. I want to summarize. We know what is going on. It is going on very wrong. And we did a lot of failures. But, and therefore I say thank you so very much to Asim Malhotra. Thank you to your triangle to move mountains. You presented us solutions, not only critics. We know that everything is wrong now in the moment, but people like you, humans like you, treating with empathy, you have solutions. You told us about the statins, and you told us about the failure about the COVID-19 vaccine. You as well, Robert Malone. We have solutions. Therefore, I say thank you to Gerd Hauser. You said a sentence at the beginning, together we are strong. And one of the speakers before said, through cooperation we are strong. Then I heard the sentence, keep moving forward, from you, Asim. Thank you. I want to refer to your triangle. What is the solution? What is my contribution? We could do something together. What can we do together? You said a creation of relevant knowledge, point one. Involvement of the politician, here is one. And the social participation. How can we bring this in practice? We could, and that's a sentence I prepared, we could establish, we could create together an international academy of best solutions, like yours, you mentioned before. We know there is a best solution for every problem on the world, but it's so difficult to find this solution. But if we would have a shared community academy of the best solutions, everybody from all over the world could have access to these solutions. Not only some solutions, we say the best solutions. For example, I brought one of the best solutions we have now, for example, for autism or for Lyme's disease. But how is it possible? Let us create a shared digital archive of knowledge and experience in form of solution protocols. Yeah? Everybody in the room, he has for problems a solution protocol for himself. But what is the best? We could follow a defined input procedure and an output procedure, how you can come to these wonderful solutions. And we could optimize under constant success monitoring. Objective, there must be an improvement in the findings, and there must be improvement in the subjective symptoms to achieve professional and economic advantages for all members involved through cooperation and not mutual competition. What is our goal for the future? What could it be? Together, collect, develop, apply, share, further develop, optimize solution concepts for all problems and issues in order to improve the living conditions and health of all living beings. This could be a solution, and if you are interested to join, please, I will give you this list. If you're interested and to get more information about, please add your name to the list.
Yes, wonderful.
Okay.
We definitely plan, thank you so much, to have a conference on best solutions because Dr. Surberg, with 40 years of experience in holistic health, already presented to me his big data. And there is lots of doctors from all across the world who brought their ideas in. And I think this is a very wonderful protocol where people really from all across the world, doctors from New Zealand can have a look at, oh, what are the Austrians doing if there's Lyme disease coming up? So this is a really good idea, and we will definitely take this seriously in MEHA. Thank you so much. Our next speaker, and here I want to ask somebody who is from Austria as well. The reason why I ask our young colleague here, it is because we have so many young people out there, and it's important that we have role models for young people who probably also shine a light on healthy lifestyle for young people and probably become influencers in how they live their lives. Dear Lukas Winkler from Austria.
Thank you. As you said, my name is Lukas Winkler. I am the founder and CEO of Hyperbalance, a center for biohacking and longevity based in Graz, Austria. And I sit here in front of you not only as an entrepreneur, but as someone who once faced a serious illness. That experience gave me a profound realization. True health begins long before disease appears. My diagnosis was not a matter of fate, it was the consequence of years of poor lifestyle choices. That's the reason why I got blind as I was 15 years old. What helped me to recover and rebuild my life were longevity therapies, especially hyperbaric oxygen therapy. These therapies support regeneration, strengthen our cells, and enhance performance and vitality from young adulthood all the way into old age. Prevention is not just a moral imperative, it is a smart economic decision. Every euro invested in prevention saves many times that amount in acute and long-term medical costs. It is time we redefine health, not as the active pursuit of longevity and vitality. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Helen Larsen from Estonia.
Hello everyone. I'm a medical doctor, family doctor, and I have PhD in neuroscience. And I'm also a board member of World Council for Health Estonia. And I would like to say a few words about the current situation that we all know we are living in an epidemic of mental, physical, and psychosomatic illnesses. And to reverse the situation, I think we need to apply holistic approach. And by this, we can provide the environment where all life can be flourished and prosper. But before that, we need to connect our body, spirit, and mind. Without any of those in balance, one simply cannot make any good decisions for improving our lives. To restore dignity and trust and respect between the medical staff, science, and patients, this is a very crucial topic for me and many medical people. And last but not least, we have to restore the medical oath, first to no harm, because we cannot let this situation, what we have had, never happen never again. And this can be done only by combining our knowledge, but we have plenty of it today, with our wisdom, which is a base for the future decisions. And to conclude it, I would like to, if I can have a word anywhere, so we can heal what can be healed, and we can build the bridges what can be built, and we can restore the humanity. Thank you.
Next speaker is Professor Mariano Bizzarri. No, okay, sorry. Then Dr. Alberto Donzelli.
Alberto Donzelli, sono medico di San...
I am a public health doctor. And I was also in the Superior Health Council in Italy. I'm also a coordinator of the Medical Scientific Independent Committee of Italy. Now, included in the priorities of this movement, I have observed that we want to get rid of the most significant threat, which is mRNA vaccines offered to the entire population of the world, and very often to people who experience severe harm. Now, it has been said that these vaccines reduce transmission and thereby infection, but Austria has shown how, with 4 million Austrians who were analysed, with subjects of 4 doses, over an 8-month period, were 7.3 times more likely to get infected than those who weren't. So this means that we're seeing a fall in consumer confidence, and we're also seeing an increase in mortality. We are seeing adverse effects, and unfortunately, total mortality has increased. But we can only understand this by giving credit to observational studies that use real data on 2 conditions. The data must include mortality by vaccines. Very few countries publish that data, and very often they stop publishing that data. And the second condition is that systematic errors need to be corrected, because we can all understand that these errors occur, but this is forgotten by a lot of epidemiologists. There are the 4 main principal errors, and we would be very pleased to be able to correct those errors, and in doing so, we can help change public opinion, thinking that vaccines reduce infection rather than the opposite way around. Thank you.
We definitely will have doctors' conferences where we absolutely address those topics. Our next speaker is Scott Tibbs.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. I'm Scott Tibbs. I'm an attorney at law, have been for 45 years, and I'm the president of the National Health Federation, the world's oldest health freedom organization. And I'm here to thank everyone for their presence and their contributions, and NHF and its sister organizations, NHF Sweden and NHF Germany, would like to join in. I'm reminded of something that an American comedian and filmmaker said once about 50 years ago. He said, "I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens." And so I think with us, it may seem like it's a very strange quote for this group, but we don't want to be there when it happens, and we want to make sure to delay it as much as we can. And we do that through better living, through better food, better nutrition, better sanitation, all of those things. And we do it also by avoiding certain dangerous medications, vaccines, and the like. But one thing we need to keep in mind, and it's really important for this group, is the impact, the importance of Codex Alimentarius and its commission. And the NHF has been fortunate enough for 25 years now to have an accredited INGO status with this group. And we've worked closely on certain issues with the EU delegation in order to fight toxic chemicals that go into our food, glyphosate, Roundup, all sorts of ingredients in our foods like aspartame, melamine residues, and vet drug residues that go into meats and the like. But it's been a pretty lonely battle for the 25 years I've been fighting it, at least. But it's important to know that, for those of you who don't, that Codex Alimentarius creates global food standards, and these global food standards can very easily overwhelm even the healthiest of food regulations that you are able to obtain here in the European Union. So you could get the healthiest food regulations under the EU statutes, and it won't mean a thing because the EU has agreed to harmonize its food standards to those of Codex. And just like the United States is committed to that. So it could easily overwhelm your work here unless you pay attention to Codex Alimentarius. So if we want to make Europe healthy again, I think MEHA needs to take into account the work being done at Codex. And I really invite everyone here to consult with me, or at least approach me. And we have meetings coming up and the like. And I would really like to see some impact on the EU Codex office here in Brussels, where there are people who are well-meaning because they do follow the precautionary principle here. So NHF and the EU delegation is often fought side by side at Codex, but it's really not enough. The EU delegation doesn't have the backbone to stand up to the New World, literally from Canada down to Chile and Argentina, and to fight this to a conclusion, and they give up way too easily. So we need people here to put some stiffening into the backbone of the EU delegation.
Thank you so much. We will definitely have joint efforts on this. Thank you. Our next speaker is somebody from the UK, and this will perfectly add up with Reggie Littlejohn's statement. It is about digital ID, and I want to ask Montgomery Toms, also a young, wonderful man who stands for freedom, and thank you so much because you influence young people to do you alike, so thank you for being here.
Oh, no, well, thank you for having me, and I try my best. But yeah, no, just on digital ID, so of course we've had people reference already that we've got digital ID coming to the UK, or hopefully not. But I just want to kind of throw our minds back to lockdown, because that's why we're here, really. That was the beginning of the terrible precedent that has been set. We saw vaccine passports, obviously internationally, and this is what set the precedent for digital IDs in the UK. It's going from bad to worse, really, because once digital IDs are implemented, we're going to be tracked, monitored, surveilled. We're going to have our rights and liberties further removed, and ultimately, as a young person, like, I'll keep this very short. You know, when I was 14, lockdown hit, I was kind of like, I went through puberty whilst being sort of locked down, not that I really observed it very much, but nevertheless, I sort of grew into an authoritarian climate where I see it as a responsibility, not just for young people, but for everyone to fight for freedom, liberty, and also justice. And digital IDs, I do believe we can stop it. I do believe it will be stopped. Because quite simply, there's not enough space in the UK prisons, and you'll have to find me in there because I will never have one. And I hope everyone will join me in mass non-compliance and say, no, we don't want it. And in the wise words of Winston Churchill, we will never surrender.
Next, Reggie Littlejohn, lawyer from the USA. Thank you.
Esteemed colleagues and members of the European Parliament, I am Reggie Littlejohn. I am an attorney from the United States. I come to you as the founder and president of Anti-Globalist International, co-founder of the Sovereignty Coalition, co-founder of the Stop Vaccine Passports Task Force. Can the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty and amended international regulations usher in an era of chronic lab leaks, bioterrorist attacks, digital surveillance, and a Chinese-style social credit system? A number of people have said today that we need to come out from under the boot of the World Health Organization. Here's a strategy to do that. Now, perhaps the most chilling aspect of the pandemic treaty that passed the World Health Organization in May of 2025 is the pathogen access and benefit sharing system, the PABS system, to, quote, promote the rapid and timely sharing of materials and sequence information on pathogens with pandemic potential. This system will concentrate all of the world's most deadly pathogens into the hands of unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats under the influence of the pharmaceutical industry. The WHO that will then share them with labs all over the world, ostensibly to develop vaccines, diagnostics, and other therapeutics. The sharing of these pathogens will greatly increase the chances of lab leaks and also the potential for bioterrorist attacks. Further, there is no language in the pandemic treaty limiting dangerous gain-of-function research. So labs all over the world could experiment on pathogens with pandemic potential to make them more transmissible and more lethal. In what way does this serve the health of humanity? It is concerning that the details of how this system will work is not in the pandemic treaty itself. It has been reserved to an annex, which is still being negotiated, and they have not submitted an updated draft. So, furthermore, the treaty requires nations, quote, to prevent misinformation and disinformation. That's worse than censoring it. It's to prevent it. So prevent, for example, even this conference from happening. And they don't define misinformation or disinformation, but if you look back to COVID-19, you can see that what it means is basically dissenting opinions, and also anything that would cause vaccine hesitancy, as we've discussed before, a clear violation to the right of free speech. Furthermore, the amended international health regulations require international health documents. Many of these will be digital. These digital health documents, I would argue, are just a precursor to the World Economic Forum's digital ID, where they say that basically you will need a digital ID to access healthcare insurance and treatment, open a bank account, carry out online transactions, travel, access humanitarian services, shop, conduct business transactions online, participate in social media, pay taxes, vote, collect government benefits, and own a communications device, such as a cell phone or a laptop. Basically, these digital IDs we will be required to have them and to be in good standing just to access any part of life. Therefore, what's the strategy? Okay, I will wrap it up. The PABS system has not passed yet. It has not come to a vote. So if countries vote against this pathogen access and benefit sharing system, then it will not be implemented. And furthermore, the pandemic treaty itself will not be voted upon until the annex has passed. So if you want to oppose these, please talk to me after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have awesome lawyers, awesome scientists, doctors, people from Health Freedom Movement from all across the world here. I ask the following speakers, please probably do 90 seconds. I know it's hard if you have to cut your prepared statements. I just ask you to do so we can hear all of the remaining speakers. Thank you so much for that. And to follow up with, I think it makes a lot of sense to hear our amazing friend, lawyer Philipp Kruse from Switzerland.
Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you very much for the distinguished guests, and most notably to Dr. Robert Malone and Asim Malhotra for your outstanding and inspiring speeches. After having led many court proceedings in Switzerland as a Swiss lawyer against harmful and unconstitutional corona mandates in Switzerland, after having represented individuals in courts for compensations for their heavy injuries from mRNA injections, and after having initiated the major criminal court proceeding against Swissmedic, our Swiss Medical Safety Agency, still any results with respect to justice remain to be seen. And we can only ask the question, why does this happen? My personal takeaway from over 3 years of hard work, and I'm certainly not the only one who has worked many months and years for free, is the following. We see that from all of these attempts and legal court procedures, we can see the lesson learned and the takeaway as follows. Still today in all involved courts, all involved health authorities, certainly in Europe, they protect their governments still today in all of their deceptive information policies, in their wrong decision making, and most of all in their totally illegal authorizations of the mRNA products that were granted in Switzerland by the medical safety agencies. So there is still no justice done, no lesson learned in our official world in Europe. So what do we do about that? Well, first I wanted, when I came here, ask the question to the MEHA team, to Dr. Robert Malone, is there any hope coming from the United States, where so many positive signals have come from, and most notably on the 20th of January, the declaration of the President Trump to exit the WHO, and many further steps. And now from today's event, I can derive hope. It will be from Europe. We will take our destiny in our own hands. We will make sure that everybody can what the true effect of WHO was and the true effect of the industry after so many proceedings have resulted in the authorities claiming that WHO was setting the gold standards. So I look forward
to contribute together with the MEHA movement all of my experience, all of my investigations I've done against the WHO, and let's therefore together make Europe healthy again. And yes, I agree, we will never give up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is from Croatia. Andrija Glarić, please. A short statement to what makes Europe healthy again from the perspective of somebody from Croatia. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for invitation. Well, I'm a little surprised because I didn't expect it that you called me, but thank you. It's a really huge honor to be here, especially when I'm coming from this small country like Croatia. I became journalist in the last few years, and for 35 years I'm a multiple entrepreneur, and I became journalist because I think that it was necessary to speak the truth. The biggest fight was for information and for truth last 5 years, and that's how I became now professional journalist, not only, not only as an entrepreneur, but also as someone who is seeking the truth. And I think that was the biggest threat from all around the world, and especially in Europe today, because we are facing that, unfortunately, European policy is going to our freedom of speech and freedom of thinking. And that's why it's very important to address this and to talk about this here, because this is the center of Europe for now, but I think that has to become again a center of free speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is David Bell.
Thank you. I'm David Bell, public health physician. I'm here from the US on behalf of Brownstone and the International Health Reform Project. The last few years have laid bare for all of us the corruption of international public health. Commercial interests have replaced research with modelling, empirical data with groupthink, trampled on human rights and fundamental medical ethics that we all thought previously were sacrosanct. The result is global health policy based on dodgy data and false assumptions. This is well exampled by the pandemic agenda. The pandemics have not been increasing in frequency or severity, as we're constantly told. Infectious disease mortality has been consistently falling. COVID in this context stands as an outlier, but probably from a lab. Yet these increasingly rare occurrences are promoted as an existential threat, with the WHO and its partners proposing to divert tens of billions of dollars annually to address them. This will, as COVID showed, deliver massive profits for those sponsoring this agenda, but it also continue to increase widespread poverty and inequality in the global public. The WHO's obsession with pandemics and profitable emergencies also comes at the cost of redirecting resources from the underlying drivers of health, like nutrition and community-centred health systems. We're seeing the inevitable outcome here of stale bureaucracies partnered with the imperative of commercial greed. We should, however, be encouraged by signs of a pushback against this administrative nanny state and the increasing reach of globalism into our state's jurisdictions, such as health. And this meeting is a good example of that, and of turning back towards a human rights-based approach. States must urgently reassert lost attributes of sovereign responsibility, allow citizens to reassert agency, and accept individual responsibility for their own lives. In international health, this means rethinking, radically reforming or replacing institutions, starting with the WHO, decentralizing, removing conflict of interest, and putting people ahead of profit.
Thank you, David, for the statement.
To ensure this meeting goes in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution from Brownstone Institute as well. Thank you. Our next speaker, and I think this is a very important topic to also bring in, and I know that he followed my ask to make 1 minute out of his speech, is a building biologist from Austria, engineer Armin Rebernik. This is a very important topic that we definitely want to tackle as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Armin Rebernik. I'm an environmental analyst. I'm specialist on building diagnostics and scientific-based building biology. So what I do is I go to people's homes and measure pollutants, toxins, microorganisms, electromagnetic pollution. And I do this since 20 years in Central Europe, and I have a lot of experience with this, and we as building biologists see what people are living, in what environment they are living in. And we have to understand what the environment for us is today. It's 90% of our time we spend indoors. Some people, old people, sick people, spend 100% of the time indoors. So this is our environment. It's not the nature anymore. And we cannot say that this, what we are building, is natural. We find up to 5,000 chemicals in the house dust. And this is what we are breathing. We have chemical gases in the air. And this all mixes up. And we have a lot of electromagnetic pollution. So therefore, people have some problems. And the thing is, we have this empiric knowledge also. We see when we reduce those pollutants, electromagnetic pollution, especially on the bad sides, that people become better. I have lots of clients who had like lots of doctors and like horror stories for years, and they were then therapy resistant, and all of them, or most of them, they said, yeah, you have psychic problems. And then you find something at home, and then you reduce it and people become better, sometimes within weeks and months. So if we want to make Europe healthy again, I think the scientific-based building biology is very important, and it's a very great thing what we are doing here together, and I want to thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dr. Sabine Stäbel from Germany. If I kindly also may ask you, people can find your work online as well, to make a short statement. I thank you so much for your work.
So my name is Dr. Sabine Stäbel. I'm an independent scientist. I did my PhD in protein optimization, which is another word for gain-of-functional protein level. So what I want to talk about shortly is the safety data sheet. Did you know the mod RNA products have a safety data sheet? Did any doctor read the safety data sheet? I just want to cite some highlights from the safety data sheet. If operating and handling conditions result in airborne exposure, which is always the case if you get rid of the air in the syringe, wear an appropriate respirator, not a mask, respirator, with a protection factor sufficient to control exposure. Particulate cartridge with a full face respirator, P3 filter. Did any doctor wear this garment? Wear Imperial's disposable protective clothing when handling this compound. Full body protection is recommended. Or where warranted engineering controls such as a biosafety cabinet should be applied at the primary means of control of exposure. If doctors kept to these rules in the safety data sheets, I have some printouts in German if someone's interested, this platform is dead. Just keep to the rules in the safety data sheet. This product is listed as OEB5 by Pfizer, which means highly hazardous. It's in their documents. How can this be safe?
Yes, you can find it on the website.
I have some of these, you can have them.
Thank you so much, Sabine. Our next speaker is Ivor Cummins from Ireland. Also, if you could shorten it a little bit more than I asked you before. Thanks.
Thanks, Maria. I'll try. So Ivor Cummins from Ireland. I'm a biochemical engineer and a kind of metabolic science specialist. I'm going to keep it simple today. In engineering, we have the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, and I think this can be done here. You might be familiar with the British term meat and 2 veg, and another term that might be useful I made up around 10 years ago is the devil's triad. So I'll just briefly go through those two. The first term, meat and 2 veg, evokes a traditional British main meal. It's got protein in the center and 2 vegetable sides. It's a cornerstone of healthy, nutritious human food. And the meat can be any nutrient-dense animal food, any meat, any fish, or perhaps eggs. And this way of eating for humans contained no ultra-processed fake foods. If this was still the mainstay of the European diet, we would not have a need for a MEHA initiative, ironically. Now, my second term, the devil's triad, I put together a long time back. What is it? Well, it's the primary root cause of most modern chronic disease. Mainly, it's sugar, refined grains, refined wheats, and vegetable or seed oils. The triad makes up most of our modern disease-causing ultra-processed foods. It's the big problem in them, really. And these so-called foods make up most of the calories in our diets from the BMJ. They're designed to be addictive in nature. They are our problem. So to make Europe healthy again, the authorities would need to keep it simple. A, across all agencies, exclusively promote real ancestral nutrient-dense foods, meat, fish, eggs, vegetables. An enabler of A, support local farmers and producers in and across all European countries at all costs. B, across all agencies, unite to achieve a common understanding of this simple but crucial message. Most of our supermarkets are stuffed with the devil's triad. No surprise where we are. And an important enabler of B, to finish, remove ultra-processed food corporates from all food guidelines committees, from roles in training nutritionists and medical personnel. Get them out there, destroying our health from within the system. That's a scientific fact, and you can trust that science.
Thank you so much. Next speaker from France, also Professor Christian Perron. If I also may ask you to make a very, very short statement. I know you're...
Okay. Thank you, Maria. Thank you to all of the organizers. Thank you to Robert Malone and Asim Marotra. I met them sometimes in Europe or in the United States, and you're doing a fantastic job. If you allow me, I will continue in French, so you can put your earphones. Je voudrais remercier les...
I would like to thank the MEPs here, Virginie Jourand, Christine Anderson, Rob Ross, and others who I may not have mentioned. They have carried out fantastic work here in the European Parliament for several years now. They have shed light on this Parliament, both in Strasbourg as well as here in Brussels. I'm not going to go back over what has already been said by previous experts. Public health is in danger. Life expectancy and natality rates are on a downward spiral, so we need to restore public health, particularly when it comes to research and publications. We need independence of media. And as was underscored earlier, medicine is not an exact science, and I completely agree that medical studies need to focus more on prevention rather than treatment. Just two examples. In France, with friends, I have fought for something called bonsens.org, so commonsense.org in English. This is a group presided over by Xavier, who's the director of François. This was a newspaper created in the Second World War under the French resistance. François, with other alternative media, were one of the main French media outlets carrying out resistance. And I just wanted to quote two examples. We fought against scientific mistakes. We've got experts that want to retract articles published in international journals. We think that's important. And then we also have a lawyer from bonsens.org who's here with us here today. We are fighting for transparency for public health data. The French government refuses.
Thank you for your statement. We just need to really use the last minutes to give short speeches, because we have to finish this up by 6 o'clock. And I know we have 4 more speakers, and I would like if you could really make a short statement, tell us your name, where you come from, and a short statement about what makes Europe healthy again. Mr. Polykratis would be the next one. I'm sorry that we had to shorten this very much.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Honorable Hauser, for hosting this event and for inviting us to participate. So, considering that the pharmaceutical industry plans to extend the use of the mRNA technology to several applications over the coming years, mainly because it saves time and money, we cannot overlook one of its most critical drawbacks. I'm talking about the immune response, where the body's defense system targets and destroys any cell producing the antigen encoded by the mRNA. The global scientific community, policymakers, and the general public must understand that according to a core principle of immunology, Any cell producing a viral or foreign protein is inevitably recognized as a threat by the immune system and killed. Because of this mechanism, since the beginning of the vaccination campaigns, I'm trying to warn the scientific community about the necessity of conducting extensive biodistribution evaluations. Such evaluations in humans have been totally bypassed. However, clear histopathological evidence from biopsies and autopsies shows that the vaccine-derived genetic material can enter systemic circulation and spread without control throughout the body. This includes the brain and the heart, where it can trigger the immune system to attack the body's own tissues, leading to serious adverse effects like myocarditis, a condition I was the first to hypothesize and describe in scientific literature. Given that I'm speaking here today, I feel compelled to mention that, based on the findings of the Pfizer study number 185350, the Comirnaty assessment report by the European Medicine Agency, dated February 19, 2021, states on page 47, I quote, over 48 hours biodistribution from the injection site to most tissues occurred. Therefore, the EMA was aware that in rats, biodistribution beyond the injection site occurred involving most tissues. Despite these alarming safety signals, millions of people around Europe, including pregnant women and infants, have been inoculated with these experimental products. And this happened also thanks to the silence of the vast majority of the scientific community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Also, next speaker is Alberto Contri.
Thanks to the international relationships, our group of volunteers succeeded in getting the Italian government to reject the amendments to the WHO's international health regulations, the only European country to do so, despite pressure from the European Union. We believe that alongside the need to restore a true scientific debate and defend health, fundamental rights must be guaranteed, especially in freedom of speech and critical thinking. In recent years, censorship has impacted public debate, but also scientific debate, making it increasingly difficult to publish studies independent of mainstream influence. It is therefore important to promote a free, indexed scientific journal and European coordination to defend rights and freedom of speech against the constant pressure from the attacks by censorship and social control. Only together can we do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have a short statement from Mexico, from former UN employee Gloria Garcia, please. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I did not have a speech ready, but I'm going to be very quick. After many years of struggling with mental health, I founded a company that and been researching for many, many years to create all natural formulas to attack many issues, one of them mental health, and that's how we're going to make Europe healthy again, attacking mental health issues with natural ingredients.
Thank you so much. So we have one very last speaker, Sandro Sanvenero. Okay. Sorry. Yes, we had a very last minute to be announced to be a speaker, so we cannot do this anymore because the interpreters leave their booths, so we only can continue in English maximum. The thing is, if you're not prepared yet, Mr. Contri, there would be like 2 statements. We were asked for a last minute statement by Hungarian lawyer, you first, and then Hungarian lawyer Mihalik. Mr. Contri, please.
Okay, so may I speak in Italian or I have to speak in English?
Yes, maybe a 30-second statement because we really have to finish up.
So
Thank you.
Very quickly, so I use Italian. Sono stato per 26 anni nella dirigenza dell'Ordine dei Medici, sia provinciale che nazionale e internazionale. Sono stato l'unico presidente che si è rifiutato di sospendere i sanitari renitenti all'obbligo vaccinale. imposti in Italia, per cui dirò poche parole sull'etica, inquadrandola in un quadro generale. Da sempre il potere, quello vero, ha avuto la necessità di un principio ispiratore. In principio era la religione, se non credevi non facevi il re, non il medico. Da adesso è diventato l'ambiente, la salute, il One Health. E poiché i medici ne sono i gran sacerdoti, la chiave di volta che regge lo stesso principio ispiratore, ecco la necessità di bloccarli in procedure, protocolli, ovviamente scritti da qualcun altro, facendoli diventare dei banali burocrati pronti ad essere sostituiti dalla stupidità computazionale, erroneamente definita intelligenza artificiale. Da qui l'assoluta necessità, per avere un'Europa healthy again, di impegnarsi affinché venga da una parte preservata il consenso informato del paziente e l'autonomia e l'indipendenza nella responsabilità dello svolgimento della professione e dall'altra contrastare i conflitti di interesse, specialmente in ambito formativo, e le porte girevoli tra controllati e
Mr. Condry, I just have to announce that the interpreters had to finish, and so maybe short English. Yes, finish.
So
Thank you.
we have to come back to the basilar principle of medicine, the ethics.
Yes, thank you so much. Absolutely.
Hello.
So for everybody at home, the live stream now is still ongoing on gomeha.com and also provided at Mr. Hauser's YouTube channel. The live stream bei MEP Gerald Hausers Livestream ist jetzt wahrscheinlich nur mehr auf Englisch zu hören, aber wir haben noch 2 finale Statements und dann werde ich noch das Wort an den Gerald Hauser geben. Also ein herzliches Entschuldigung an die Zuseher im Livestream auf Deutsch. Wir werden den Rest der Konferenz noch in Englisch abschließen und noch ein Statement von der ungarischen Rechtsanwältin Angelika Mihalik, bitte.
So, I'm Angelika Mihalik from Hungary. I'm a Hungarian attorney representing more than 600 severely vaccine-injured children across Hungary. These children, ranging from infants to 12 years old, suffer from serious conditions such as epilepsy, autism, cancer, autoimmune diseases, etc., and all medically linked to adverse reactions following mandatory vaccination. Hungary imposes one of the world's most aggressive mandatory vaccination schedule, nearly 50 vaccines before age 12, without any meaningful medical exemption mechanism. Over the past 3 years, out of hundreds of documented medical contraindications, the authors have granted only one exemption, despite life-threatening risk in many cases. Parents who refuse further vaccinations for their injured children face fines ranging from $550 to $100 USD, and it can repeated over and over again. And in some cases, child removal by welfare authorities for forced vaccinations. Doctors fear disciplinary action if they report adverse events, and the media remains silent. We are 4 attorneys willing to defend these families face continuous disciplinary threats and harassment for our work. This is our story.
Thank you for the insight. Yeah, thank you for the insight on Hungary, and we will definitely tackle this with Hungarian doctors and lawyers and speak with our international team as well. And there is one very final statement also by German psychologist Dr. Dirk Seeling, who is also working on a moratorium to the modified RNA vaccines. Please keep it very, very short. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the audience and to our guests. And there's a group of 188 first signatures and 10,000 people, more than 2,000 doctors worldwide and scientists that signed a risk warning regarding drug safety and mRNA moratorium. So it's about modified mRNA vaccines that they have to be stopped because of all what we already know. I would like to add meditation was one very, very important thing. It's even growing hippocampus. Yeah. And on the other hand, what I think in Europe we can really, it would be helpful if from America is supporting, if the bridge is working, and to get the support, and on the other hand to be self-responsible. That is for sure. It needs to be self-responsible for all the people, that they know what they are doing, and therefore we need information, and therefore we need a good network with all groups together, and therefore it's fantastic what you started, Maria, and yeah, we want to support, and everyone can support to subscribe on mwm-proof.com to give the signature, and we will also connect to other groups like WCH, North Group, CS Medicus, and other groups that are here in Europe from doctors and scientists. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I want to mention two more doctors, Dr. Hannes Schoberwalter, who also came from Austria. Unfortunately, we cannot hear your statements anymore, but we will definitely gather tomorrow again. Also, Dr. Kabelka from Austria is here. He wrote several books on modified RNA vaccination. I know you understand. We really have to close this conference for now, but we will have doctors' conferences in 2026 in the first half of the year. And I also want to say thank you to the Brownstone Institute, who is partnering with us. And from Brownstone Institute is Tom Harrington. Tom, I know you can end on a positive note, so I would like to hear a message of hope from you to just round this up before MEP Gerald Hauser and I wrap this conference up finally. Thank you.
I don't come here as a scientist. I come from the world of culture, and I was brought into this world of scientific things a few years back. I'd like to just say a couple of things about what I'd like to call intellectual or cultural ecology. Brownstone publishes books, Brownstone publishes articles. We send out a lot of information, we share a lot of information, but we also get people to gather together and to come across class lines and across educational lines in some of our supper clubs and feed the spirit in that way. So there's one thing I think that stands behind Brownstone's whole outlook, and it's that our institutions failed us. Culture comes from institutions. We don't have culture without institutions to shape it and turn it into something. Our institutions failed us, and we are now in a position to create new ones. It's horrifying that we need to do so, but I think gatherings like this and the type of person-to-person things that we do and we are doing here are really an important step in getting people together, because everything's, for better and for worse, everything's on the drawing board now. They've failed us, they've lied to us, and we need to do something else, and they're not going to do it for us, and we have to do it together.
For all the colleagues who had to shorten their statements, they know that we have a gathering Thursday morning. They got already personally invited to this. And after the personal meeting that we have tomorrow on Thursday, I want to announce that there will be a press conference as well, Thursday, 12 p.m. till 1:30 p.m. and one of the people who is going to live stream from there is Dan Estin Gregory from Free Humanity, who is on our MEHA steering committee, and you can see the live stream of the press conference on his channel, and we also might give this key to other media who want to share the live stream as well. So again, I'm sorry for the people who had to cut their speeches short. I want to say a heartfelt thank you for everybody who came here to spend the time with us, and tomorrow there will be definitely a great think tank meeting Thursday morning. And I want to say a heartfelt thank you to MEP Gerald Hauser. I also, And I think this is also important to you. I also want to say a heartfelt thank you to your team. Great team, thank you so much. Also to the Patriots for Europe Foundation, who is our host together with Gerald Hauser. Thank you so much. And thank you also MEP Christine Andersen, who is here with us in the room. Thank you so much that you spent the time with us. Also MEP Virginie Joron, and I know there are other MEPs in the room. Thank you so much. MEPs from AUR Party joined us. We are happy to get in contact with you, and we definitely want to offer you the solutions that MEHA with this great network is going to come up with. Thank you again, and now closing remarks in German from MEP Gerald Hauser to the people who are still watching on his YouTube channel. Noch einmal Entschuldigung, dass das jetzt nur noch auf Englisch übertragen wurde. Gerald, danke von ganzem Herzen und Abschlussworte auf Deutsch.
Ja, liebe Maria, geschätztes Publikum, hochkarätiges Publikum, es war für uns, glaube ich, heute eine Riesenehre, bei der Geburt von MEHA im Europäischen Parlament, gerade im Europäischen Parlament, anwesend zu sein. Ich glaube, das ist der richtige Ort, weil gerade die Gesundheit hier nicht gut aufgehoben ist, aber heute einen riesengroßen Input auch von Ihnen bekommen hat. Abschließend möchte ich mich bedanken bei der Foundation, lieber Herr Präsident. Danke für die großartige Unterstützung. Liebe Maria, dir gratuliere ich von Herzen für diese wunderbare Veranstaltung. Ich glaube, besser hätte es nicht laufen können. Es war ein idealer Ort, um MEHA hier und heute auf die Welt zu bringen. Wir hatten großartige Redner, Dr. Asim Malhotra. Ein großes Dankeschön. Lieber Dr. Robert Melon, großartige Arbeit. Wir brauchen deinen Input von Amerika. Wir brauchen den Schwung, der von Amerika ausgeht, damit auch in Europa endlich wieder die Freiheit, die Redefreiheit, die Demokratie Einkehr findet. Nicht nur in der Gesundheit. Heute mehrmals angesprochen, die Menschen müssen frei entscheiden können, ob sie sich impfen lassen wollen oder nicht. Aber vorher müssen sie korrekte, konkrete Informationen darüber bekommen. In Summe war das heute eine großartige Veranstaltung. Und geschätzter Herr Präsident, wir sind, glaube ich, sehr froh und dankbar, dass wir diese Veranstaltung ausrichten durften und wünschen MEHA, liebe Maria, MEHA, alles erdenklich Gute. Und wäre es nicht ein so wunderschöner Tag und Abend und hätten wir nicht auch noch einen kleinen Höhepunkt? Lieber Dr. Philipp Gut, bitte komme. Unser Freund Peter Filling aus der Schweiz, ein wirklicher Gutmensch. Ich bin beim Wort Gutmensch immer vorsichtig, so wie ich mittlerweile beim Wort Experte sehr, sehr vorsichtig geworden bin nach dieser sogenannten Covid-19-Pandemie. Aber es ist der große Peter Fillinger, der seit Jahren Persönlichkeiten für ihren Mut und ihre Menschlichkeit auszeichnet. Und es war seine Entscheidung, heute und hier Dr. Robert Melon den Award für Mut und Menschlichkeit zu überreichen, der Award für Humanity und Courage. Lieber Dr. Robert Melon, großartig von dir. Wir gratulieren von Herzen und bitte nimm das als Zeichen mit nach Amerika, mit in deine Institutionen, dass wir dich, deine Institutionen hochschätzen und auf eine gute Zusammenarbeit warten und darum bitten. Alles Gute und noch einmal Dankeschön an alle für das Kommen. Es war großartig heute. Danke.